5, a 6, a 5, 6, 7, 8.
Hi everyone, my name is Arielle Carraha, and this is the first episode and season of The Broker's Table, your digestible guide to New York City's real estate market, where we eat a lot of food and we talk a little bit about real estate. Let's eat.
Yeah.
I'm originally from New York City, and I've been a real estate agent for over 9 years now. I'm here today with my trusted colleagues, Joshua, who's been in the industry for over 7 years now, and somehow always manages to remain tan year-round. Alan, who's been in the industry for over 7 years and can basically do deals in his sleep, former NASA employee. And Austin, who was a former agent, been in the industry for 7 years now and is a senior director at Triplemint.
Also a former NASA employee.
Oh, okay, great. So we're all just
Yeah.
We're all
We're all
former.
astronauts.
I did go to space camp this year.
Great. So today we're eating bagels and talking about financing your apartment. We're eating bagels because it's the first thing that you start in your day, and financing is the first thing that you start in the process. So why is starting with financing the most important part for a buyer?
Just a waste of time otherwise, right?
If you don't know what you can afford, how can you know what you're gonna get?
It's like starting with dessert before you have your appetizer.
Wow.
Yeah.
You
Always
could
back
do
to
it,
food.
but you could do that though. This
You
way,
shouldn't.
What
Right.
about the people who want to start it backwards? What about the people who just want to see apartments and then just get it later? Why is that such an issue?
Because a lot of brokers won't even show if you don't have a pre-approval letter if you're financing.
Well, I think more importantly, it's just, if you're gonna go see apartments that you like, you have to know that A, you can afford the apartment, because there's nothing worse than falling in love with something that you can't purchase.
Right.
It's like going window shopping. We all like the idea of it, but it's not really the best use of time.
Okay, so let's just say someone wants to figure out how they can afford an apartment in New York City. What is the first thing that they should do? How do they get introduced to a mortgage broker?
Well,
Wait.
I'll tell you what I did. I did it completely backwards. I took my salary, divided it by 40 as if I were a renter, and then I learned early in my career a very non-scientific way to do this, which is double the rent and add 2 zeros. And I was like, oh, I can afford X amount that I'm not gonna say. And then I assumed there would have to be a co-op because it's cheap. And then I knew that co-ops take 30% financing, and then I just worked my way backwards. Is that how to do it?
No, not even close, and none of that really made any sense.
It did in my head.
Look, the best thing they can do is meet with a banker, specifically a mortgage banker, to figure out how much they can afford. Because there's a lot of different ways and there's a lot of factors that go into your income and what we count as income. And I think a banker is the best person to tell you, or your real estate agent.
Yeah.
So a banker or a broker?
Both. A mortgage broker can set you up with a lot of different bankers, but a specific banker has the connections within the organization to get you the best deal with that specific bank. So you should talk to both for sure, depending on what you're looking for.
Okay, and so what kind of information do I have to give this mortgage banker or broker?
Well, here in New York, a lot of us like to use the revenue financial form. Revenue financial form is just kind of like a personal balance sheet. So it'd be more like taking all of your liquidable assets on one side and then your rolling debts on the other. And then they kind of calculate what Austin was talking about earlier, a debt to income ratio. And from this number, that's what a lot of lenders would like to look at whenever you speak with them to kind of see where you're at and what you can afford. It's kind of like the first step. I would say best talk with your broker, find your broker. You need to find the 3 most important people in this process are going to be your broker, your lender, and your attorney.
Right.
So I like to start with your broker and have them introduce you to the lenders and to the attorneys. Once you have the introduction to the lender, they can kind of steer you through the process. But again, I firmly believe it all starts with revenue financial.
Yeah, I think going back to that revenue financial, I think so much of us, in general, people are really afraid to calculate their net worth. But
For
really,
sure.
when it comes down to it, buying an apartment in New York City, you're faced with having to see what you look like on paper.
A lot of times people are shocked at their power to purchase. Some people go in here with the idea that, oh, I only have X, Y, or Z liquidable, and that's all I'm gonna be able to kind of add to my net worth. And then you'll find that there are a lot of things that you can put towards, your net worth.
Okay, well, so let's just say, for instance, someone goes to the banker tells them, well, you don't make enough money or you don't have what you need to have to get a loan. What are the other options? Are there other options?
Definitely, and I think that they'll talk you through them as well. Most times they're not gonna just say, if you have if you're already there, they're not going to stop the process. They're going to want to keep the process going.
It's a no for me.
Well, look, what we see all the time happening is that people go to the bank and they're surprised at the post-close liquidity option of what they can actually afford. So everybody thinks that New York real estate is like other places in the country. And then they find out that we're dealing with co-ops and condos that require more money than the banks might. So in addition to talking to your banker about what you can afford, your income, and potentially co-purchasing, you definitely want to talk to them about what you can do after you purchase.
I mean, I've been doing real estate in New York for so long that it actually just dawned on me recently that the rest of the country pays 3 to 5% down, when in New York City you're paying 20%, if you're lucky, 10%.
That's not even all though. There's the down payment, and then there's the carrying cost, and then there's the closing cost.
Right, because like you mentioned earlier, post-closing liquidity, they want to see sometimes 2 years of post-closing liquidity, which would be your carrying costs, your maintenance, and your taxes. So it's not just, I have $100,000, which will cover the down payment, now I'm good to buy. It's, no, now you still need more. And that's where you get creative with your lender, and that's why, again, it's super important to have a really good lender that you trust, because their job is to be creative. They're the financial
Gurus.
constructors of how this is going to work for us.
So is there a way to maybe borrow money from your parents or your friends or your trusted colleagues? Thanks, guys. Is there a way to borrow money without attaching that person to any sort of form or deed or stock and lease?
Wait, is that gifting?
Yes, ding ding ding, you got it.
Crushed it.
So yeah, gifting is when somebody gives you the money, but they're not attached anywhere. You're just buying the apartment yourself, and they're giving you money without any expectation of being repaid anytime ever.
Oh, they don't get it back ever?
No, I mean, the idea of gifting is that they don't expect it back.
Right, but like they do.
So
but
close
like,
friends.
It's not like I'm giving you this shirt that I got you for your birthday, but I expect you to give it back after.
That's a fun game we play, where we buy clothes for ourselves and give it to the other because it doesn't fit.
Well, look, also keep in mind, sometimes instead of borrowing actual money, you're borrowing the purchasing power of your parents or your uncle or somebody else in your family. So a recent deal that I did, we had the father was not part of the actual deal, but he was co-signing the loan specifically. And then it wasn't a gift, but we used his purchasing power to boost her up to allow her to actually purchase the apartment of her dreams.
So the bank knows that the parent or the friend is involved, but does the building eventually know, or the co-op board, or anybody else know in the transaction that the parent is attached?
Everyone else has to know.
They have to.
I mean, with the amount of paperwork that you supply for a board package, which we will talk about later, I mean, there's no way for them to not know, and you have to be really honest about stuff like that. None of that stuff can be hid from a board going down the line.
But this is again why I think it all comes back to, if you want to understand the best place to start, it's getting in touch with a lender who you know and who you trust, because their job, like you said, is they're incentivized to make sure that if you have any possibility to purchase, they've explained it to you so in depth, because they can't get creative and then it not show later, because everything that you, when purchasing, everything that you own, you will show. So bank statements, you're not just showing first cover page, you're showing, if it says page 1 of 9, you're showing page 1 through 9, including 9, which says blank page. Like, they want it all.
And Josh, it's actually good practice too, because a lot of people get pissed off at the board package showing that paperwork. So getting practice with that with the mortgage lender from day one, first step, will set you up to be good down the road.
And the best thing about this also is that it doesn't take long. A pre-approval really does not take that long to get approved. They don't run, it's not super extensive. Obviously, once you get to the commitment letter, that's when they're gonna really go into looking at a lot more of your assets. But at the get-go, it's a 15 to 30 minute conversation with the lender to find out what your power is in purchasing, and wouldn't you want to have spent 15 to 20 minutes before going to see apartments and wasting 4 or 5 hours of a Sunday with you or anyone else for finding homes that you actually can't fall in love with.
Yep.
It's not worth anyone's time.
Okay, so I want to buy. My next step is pre-approval.
Your first step is reaching out to an agent who you trust. A lot of people like to, when going the route of finding out who they're gonna use as a lender, some people do already have friends. A lot of us have very a melting pot of different friend groups, so.
But I feel like this is a topic that isn't touched on enough. I feel like you rarely hear about good mortgage bankers and good mortgage brokers. So while we're on the topic, what makes a good mortgage banker or broker?
In my opinion, one of the best things is a good connection with their underwriting department, because at the end of the day, the bank's underwriters are going to determine if you get the loan, but a specific banker will be creative enough and know what they're looking for to make potentially your application go through when another bank.
So being able to push
Right.
things through.
I've never heard that. But also the institution is important, right? Doesn't the institution need to be reputable for like the co-op board
Sure,
to
it
approve?
definitely can't be like Austin Bradley Bank, in like the middle of New York City. It definitely,
very
you want to,
small
I would say, you want to go with one of the bigger banking houses for sure, unless there's some specific reason why you should go with somebody smaller.
And what's more important really is the fact that the building doesn't care where the money's coming from, but the banks themselves might have issue with the process of going through the co-op forward package.
Correct.
So having a New York bank is one of the things that we always recommend to all our clients, just because you don't want to have necessarily Quicken Loans who's not familiar with Manhattan. Yeah, exactly. We've all
I've been there.
Manhattan real estate is a different beast altogether, so definitely.
Yeah. And I think one of the better things that you can do is, once you are in contact with whatever mortgage banker or broker, is to, if there's a property in question already, give them the address. They can look up if they've lent there before, which is a pretty good indicator that you should either move forward with this bank or not.
And I say, fun fact, all these banks have a master list in-house of all the best buildings that they can lend on and buildings that they don't lend on. So by talking to your banker first, telling them the address of the place you're interested in, you can find out before you waste a lot of time if they'll even give you the loan.
All right, so with all that said, guys, the quick tip for today is to ask me for lenders that I recommend. I'm happy to connect you guys to get somebody that you can speak to for 15 or 30 minutes over the phone and just get a quick pre-approval so you can figure out what your purchasing power is. If you'd like to be connected, just leave it in the comments below. Thank you so much for joining us on the first episode of The Broker's Table. Looking forward to seeing you guys in the next one. Cheers, guys.
Cheers.
To loans.
To loans.